Hello, and thank you for joining us. On today's strategy call, we have Sosa. Sosa is a school librarian by day and writer by night who absolutely adores words. She also loves playing the drums. She earned her bachelor's degree from Our Lady of the Lake University and her master's degree in bilingual education from Southern Methodist University. Her first children's book, Ray Antonio and Ray Feo, was born of the celebration of her childhood in San Antonio. Her second book, Kindertransport A Child's Journey, is about the escape of children on the Kindertransport train just before the outbreak of World War II. The Unhuggables is her newest release, featuring a young boy who transforms his feelings into animals, unhuggable animals at that. It is a tender story of patience, love, and hugs, ideal for all young readers. Sosa has lived in Japan and Mexico, but sharing stories with her two sons and other eager readers has been her favorite adventure yet. Welcome, Sosa.
Hey, good morning, Terry. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I remember our last conversation that we had, and it's always great to be able to catch back up with authors again. And, I know that you've been up to quite a bit here lately. I noticed you have a couple of medals wrapped around your neck there. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, since we last spoke, a lot has happened. I'm very proud to say that I can now call myself, honestly, an award-winning author.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Last year, the Kindertransport was the first award winner, my middle grade novel that you mentioned, and we got, for historical fiction, a Children's Literary Classics Award. So I took up to the red carpet in South Dakota and received that in person at the Great American Book Festival. It was very exciting, and meet other really wonderful, inspiring authors. And then this past year in November, very recently, the Unhuggables got the Enchanted Page Book Award, which because there's only one per year, and we got it. So I'm thrilled and proud to announce that.
That is absolutely amazing, especially since it's kind of a limited award. So it really kind of makes it feel that much more special when you do win that.
It does. It really helps build you up as an author.
So how important is attending awards or participating in awards or putting your books out into the awards? What, in your opinion, what's the value of that?
I think it adds credibility to you as an author, which is not to say that if there isn't an award associated that you're not a credible author.
Right.
But it adds something to be recognized by an institution or a group that garners a lot of attention. And it's great for networking too. To be honest, my favorite part of the whole event wasn't walking the red carpet, which was fun. It was meeting all the other authors and just being inspired by them and getting ideas from them and through their experiences as well. That was incredibly helpful, and it helped me reach a market that isn't my specialty. I live in Dallas, so I branch out and I reach out a whole lot in my area and in other parts of Texas, but South Dakota, I wasn't sure if my books had reached there yet. So that was a really great experience for me and a way to broaden the reach of my books as well.
That's awesome. So it kind of makes you feel like you're a bigger part of something more than the book, so to speak, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And from the size of those things, they definitely look like a good conversation piece if you're walking around with them.
Oh, yes. And, we laughed through the entire red carpet process because there were people who had more than one on at the time, clumped together. So it's like walking around with a cowbell on your neck.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows to look? It's a great icebreaker.
I had that years ago. I used to participate in, when I lived in Germany, I used to participate in Volksmarches. And one of the things that they used to hand out was actually a cowbell. And that was the award. It was kind of funny. So you walked around, you hear all these cowbells kind of going on people's necks and stuff. So I don't have any more of those because I lost them over the years. But it's kind of interesting that I had an actual cowbell as an award.
Right.
But yeah, I can absolutely see your point. It not necessarily validates the book, but it meets a standard. And I think that is kind of the point here in not only the visibility and the marketing and the ability to network and this, that, and the other, but it also tells public, hey, my book has met a standard and it's a top read or recommended read or an editor's choice or whatever the case. So depending on what it is that the awards is looking at, you know, that's kind of the criteria of the standard that it met. And I think that makes a book stand out quite a bit as well too.
I completely agree. It's like recommendation,
Yeah.
not from a friend, but someone who's very well versed in the field. You're more
Right.
likely to read that book when someone gives it a review or a recommendation.
Exactly. You know, and I know that I guess every book award that's out there, they got different things or specific things that they're looking at. So I mean, was there something clearly identified in your books, like this is what really stood out within your book? Was there something that was clearly identified in that, or no?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the first one was a surprise. My publisher had the book, so I wasn't aware until I knew I was a finalist.
Okay.
I think in the case of the Kindertransport, it's the fact that it was based off of actual experiences,
Hmm.
few different Kindertransportees, and so the experience itself the little girl goes on rings very true.
Yeah.
And really a key in historical fiction for what's impactful is when you can feel and imagine
Mm,
and follow the journey of the character.
right.
More than anything, that was the feedback I got, is that it just felt so real. It helped people really understand what those children went through. And with
Mhm.
the novels, I think, you know, they were looking for a book that is fun but deep.
Yeah.
And Huggables has that because you're touching on, you know, loving someone through a difficult moment. You're
Right.
talking about when it's okay to touch someone, when it's not okay to touch someone. You're talking
Mhm.
about people that have sensory experiences. And even
Mhm.
if you can come right out and say this book is about, you can bring all of those themes into it. So what seems to be a
Right.
simple story can really be so relevant for so many people. And I
Mhm.
think that's what grabbed the attention, along with the fact that Alexis Brode, the illustrator, is magnificent.
Mm,
That's the first thing you notice in the book is how much action she brought to a very
right.
emotional story.
Absolutely. You know, and that's one thing as well too. So from a marketing standpoint, you know, you got different viewpoints that you can really look at. So yeah, I don't write stories. I actually write self-help, motivational, self-help, professional development type books. But it doesn't really take a nonfiction type book in order to get a message across or to present a message. And I know that your books touches on subjects that are like that, to where there's teaching points within your book. And I think that that also makes a book, one, more marketable and more valuable when you can teach those life lessons, especially within the children's market.
Yes, I think the reader or the person being read to, if they can connect to it, then
Hmm.
that's going to impact them a lot more. And
Right.
that is about opportunities to discuss things that people may not be ready to discuss otherwise. So it kind of opens
Yes.
the door. And
Absolutely.
books have changed so much over the past several years to where we're bringing in subjects that we may have been afraid to discuss before,
Hmm.
but, you know, sugar coated in a way that
Yeah.
it's safe to be able to talk to kids about subjects we may not have in the past.
I agree with that because, you know, a lot, you know, and that's parenting 101, so to speak. And I know
Mhm.
some parents struggle, even myself. I've struggled with trying to teach specific lessons, but there's a book for that.
Yes.
You know, there's authors that are out there that can take things exactly the way that you said it,
Mhm.
mold it, shape it in a way that's understandable, consumable, teachable, and a life lesson can be learned within that. And I
Mhm.
think in and of itself, like I said, that's a marketable concept, you know, and I've often thought about that as well too, of writing specific books with specific messages that has follow-on opportunity, like teaching opportunities, for example, or speaking opportunities. So when you write your books, have you put that into consideration? Like, hey, this could lead to a speaking opportunity or teaching opportunity to where I'm the subject matter expert in this field or this topic or this subject. Have you thought about anything like that?
You know, I don't think I write with that in mind because
Okay.
I'm still of the creative spirit where I write because the lightning struck me and it was
Mm,
an idea that I couldn't let go of. So I
right.
figured other people, it would be something they would be receptive to and not want to let go of.
Right.
But I do think in the same way, it's important to write things that don't just have a fun element, but an important tie, and that will lead
Yes.
to that opportunity. The opportunity to speak about important subjects will come organically, but the
Right.
book is multi-layered. And I think all of mine, even though I wrote them out of, the true love of wanting to put the message out there because it's an important message, is what makes it important enough to talk about and have those opportunities come across.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I've thought about that as well too, because there's lots of opportunity for message. There's lots of opportunity to teach and even to learn yourself as well too. But the hardest part about that, about writing children's books, in my opinion, is the illustration. And I
Yes.
think that is real. I think that there would be a lot more books out there in the world if there was just either more illustration opportunity, or if,
Mhm.
authors could figure that out. So, within your journey, how challenging has that been to get the right illustrator or to get the right illustrations to get your message across?
You know, and when you're talking about trade publishers, uh,
Hmm.
they are the ones who have all the say in choosing your illustrator.
Hmm.
So, as an author, we usually find out as an afterthought who our illustrator is.
Oh, okay.
However, that being said, it is a journey for the publisher because
Mm,
to choose somebody whose style is going to fit your style of writing,
right.
somebody who's able to really understand the story in the way that gives it a whole additional, it makes it three-dimensional instead of one.
Mm, right.
And really blessed that all of my books have had great illustrators. The illustrator really, when it comes to kids, working with kids, I can tell you there are stories that get put down because the child didn't like the cover or the illustration
Mm,
and they haven't even read the book.
right.
How valuable the illustrations can be. And I've been so fortunate in that way. My publishers have asked, what is your opinion on this? How did you visualize
Hmm.
this character? What did you imagine them to look like? What
Yeah.
did you imagine as far as their expressions? What did you imagine as far as the style or color? And I've been able to have some input, which is generous. Not all publishers do that. Um, but you're right. The job of the illustrator, I think, is actually more difficult. And
Hmm.
I had the talent to be an illustrator too. The people I look the most are the author illustrators that do both because
Hmm.
they get to create their own world. And as it stands, just like us, we're a product of one parent plus another. So I'm the mother of the story, and the illustrator comes in and makes it an entire new person.
Yeah, it definitely has its challenges. I wrote a poetry book because I wanted to have something to read to my kids and to kind of show them that, hey, look what dad has done. I didn't
Yes.
illustrate anything. I just grabbed images off the internet and, and just wrote poetry around those images. It was called A Day at the Zoo. And since I didn't illustrate it, I just like I found a picture of whatever, an animal, and I wrote a poem about
Mhm.
that animal. And but it was kind of neat because then I had something that I could kind of read to my kids and, at
Yeah.
night and this, that, and the other. And you're right, that's the first thing that a child sees is the cover. They don't see the words that are on the pages or the content or the message or anything. That's up for the parent to really kind of portray that, or to over animate that, so to speak, or to take that story and present it in a way to where it's, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's kind of learning, or just to put their kid to sleep at night. I don't know.
Yes, that too.
So speaking of that, how important, aside from the cover, do you think that a book description and the look inside sample is for children's books?
Well, that's a multi-layered question, as it usually is. For
Yeah.
the buyer, or the parent, or teacher, or librarian, whoever is trying to consider buying or borrowing the book,
Mhm.
the sample or the book description is very important because most of us don't have time to flip through an entire book to make that decision.
Right.
So I've even at work, I've had kids look at the Texas Bluebonnet Award books and choose which one is going to be our class read aloud as far as chapter books based on that book description. So
Mhm.
that they get is the summarization, and they have to choose from there out of this list of amazing literature that's every year is new, so we can't choose a new one every year. There's a new list.
Right.
They get one shot based on that book description alone, which is going to be our read aloud that we read through the entire school year. Um,
Mhm.
so that in itself is a powerful message, right? This entire
Yeah.
class of kids chose this one book to read 200 to 300 pages in its entirety, third through fifth grade, based on your book description alone. A kid will read that before they flip through an entire chapter book to decide whether
Right.
they're reading or not. A parent will read that to decide whether this is something they also want to read, or this
Right.
is something they feel comfortable with their children reading, or if they're not comfortable with it. So it's a different goal you're trying to reach through your adult reader with the book description. Is this worth my $20?
Right.
It's a book I want to have on my shelf and reach out and resource regularly? Or is this a book I'd rather just borrow from the library? Is this something I want to have as a keepsake? And they're making all of those judgments based off the cover and the description alone. So the description is what can make that sale and make this that they're going to treasure for life and take up space on their shelf, or whether they just want to flip through it and put it back. So you sell your story and get them hooked enough in that description to make an instant decision. We're an instant society at this point.
Right.
All you have, it's your elevator pitch on paper.
Yeah. We do the same thing. It's interesting that you mentioned that. We actually do the same thing. We'll go to the library once a month and we'll get a whole bag filled with like 20 or 30 books. And that's the reading list for the month. And then we'll go to Barnes and Nobles like once a month and get one book. So it's like a 1-to-30 ratio every month that we're buying one, but we're, checking out 30 from the library.
Right.
And, and I think that's, it's definitely a disproportionate. So you really kind of got to make your book stand out in a Barnes and Noble or even on an Amazon website. So within the book description, I kind of have an opinion. I think that first line is really kind of the big standout thing. And I know a lot of authors tend to lead with different things in a book description. It's, hey, I've won these awards, or hey, here's like the most important blurb, or like here's the catchphrase or one liner, or they just start talking about the characters. Or I've even seen book descriptions that are just one line, so it's absolutely crazy. And then you look at their book rating and it's like 3 million, which means they're not selling any books. So, but I really believe that. I think that, aside from the cover, the title, the book description is really important. But out of the book description, what do you think is the most important part of that book description?
I think you need to hook them with something that connects to the reader.
Okay.
Like asking a question could be a good way to hook them.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
Good in this situation. And then instantly you've got their mind rolling. Want to know, well, what did this character do? What would I do in that situation?
Right.
So I think, in my opinion, that's the best hook. If I lead with my resume or my qualifications, well, I lost them with that. That's it adds credibility to me knowing sure, but it's not going to hook the reader.
Right.
It needs to know how it worked for me. How is this relevant for me? Hook them in with, well, what would you do if you were in that situation?
Right. Yeah, it makes it more relatable, I think, when you take that approach right there. And that's what a lot of people make decisions on as well, too, is it relatable? How does it relate to me? Does it solve the problem that I'm trying to solve? Or are they just getting it for entertainment purposes, which, once again, you don't really know what you don't know, or what people are looking for and the reasons why they bought that book. Like if I bought a book, why did I buy that book? Was it because I can connect to it? Because it was relatable. It solved a problem that I was searching for. So there's so many different things that kind of tie into that. And I think that's where the look inside sample comes into play as well, too. And there's a huge opportunity because look, once you lure them, not really lure, that's kind of the wrong way to say it, but once you kind of, I guess, hook somebody in with the cover, the title, the description, you've piqued somebody's interest to where they want to open that up and look at that look inside sample. And that's the next most valuable part of a book that makes a purchasing decision. And I've seen so many authors absolutely get that wrong with the look inside sample. They got their cover that takes up like the first 10% of the look inside sample, huge cover. Then they got like a secondary smaller cover, might have like a link to their website or a link to their publisher or maybe a link to their social media, who was the illustrator, and then all the other like legal stuff that goes on there. And then they got the table of contents and then there's no content.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't make a decision based off of that. So what are your thoughts on the look inside sample? What's the most important thing that stands out within a look inside sample for you?
I think you can leave out the table of contents. Definitely.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the table of contents are worthless, useless.
Right. The cover is important because you know, from there, if I go to the bookstore, I need to recognize that book. I need to have that image in my mind. But
Okay.
I'm hooked. And even if it's not a book I can relate to because I don't have a similar experience, if my question to you is, what would you do if you were in this outlandish situation that you would never be in? Now I'm curious. I want to know more about the outlandish situation. So I want to see the chunk that leaves me with a cliffhanger.
Okay.
I want to see the end. I might not want to see the very beginning. I want to see right in the middle of that action-packed moment, to where as the reader, I have to know what happens after that. And I'm just dying to know what led up to it too.
Okay.
Something that really is the tie-in for the story without giving away too much.
So kind of like a, not necessarily a book description, which that's the worst thing you could do, is to repeat the book description in the look inside sample. It's like, you just read it on the book. Why would you read it in the first 10% or 20% of the book? It makes no sense to me. Table of contents, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of opportunity. Repeating the book description, I think, is also a waste of space and a waste of opportunity. So maybe having another synopsis or something like that, or an overview.
Well, you know, the book description in a way is kind of like your log line in a film. So it's a couple of sentences, and then your synopsis fattens it up a little bit, gives you a little more of a juicy quality to where, oh, I was intrigued, but now I really want to know.
Yeah.
It's almost like your book description, but with more detail.
Yes.
You said lure. I think lure is a perfectly adequate word.
Okay.
Draw me in to where
I suckered you in. No, I'm just playing, but yeah, it's, you know, there's some truth to that, though. It really is, you know, because, you know, especially it depends on the type of book. I've seen entrepreneurs and money making books, because I enjoy those types of books. You know, it's where it's like, you know, you got me in, and then I read this whole book, and it's really just more about, you know, the sales of your online courses or something like that. So it's like I was suckered in because you write a great description and a great intro, and then the rest of the book had nothing to it. It was really more towards something else than what I thought it was. So I can absolutely agree with, you know, the whole luring, or at least maybe faking somebody within that as well too, if it's a poorly written or a perfectly written, you know, sample.
Just like, you know, query letters and marketing prompts, those aren't my favorite things to write. For me, joy is in writing story. But if I don't do a good enough job of making that query letter just as appetizing, well, I did my service.
Right.
That's how I'm going to get you to read the big fat juicy story that I wrote over here, is if I get your appetite going enough in the query.
Yeah.
You know, you do have to throw in the juicy details.
Absolutely. What about links in books? So I know that there's different concepts or different thoughts about putting links, especially ebooks. Now, of course, on like print books, you can still put a link. You won't be able to click on it, which is a funny story. Actually, one of my kids actually tried to do that. They tried tapping on a page on a book. I'm like, it's not going to take you to something on the book, kid. but it's kind of cute that actually did happen, though. They was trying to tap on the page of the book. But anyway, how important is links within books? Because I've seen a couple of different things, and I just want to hear your thoughts on links within books.
I think it depends on the subject matter.
Okay.
You know, in a storybook, we're encouraging study guides, for example, in fiction now. Excuse me. And more than anything, because like we said, you know, the story should be a springboard for continuing to learn about a subject. So you want to add somewhere for them to go afterwards to learn more. And most of the time, being honest, they're going to refer to the internet. My only concern with links is that you have to make sure the links that you've included are going to remain active links, be adequate links for information, or related enough to what you're doing to make sense to put the link in there. And also to make sure, depending on who your audience is, that it's appropriate for them.
Right. Okay.
Even if it's about money, you know, if it's about having financial sense as a kid and what it means to save money, you're going to want to make sure that this is an appropriate site that you're linking to, and one that's going to be long lasting. If this is somebody's personal business page and they go under in a year, and I'm clicking on links that don't work, it kind of takes a little bit of the credibility away from self. So
or those links change, because I had to do that within my books as well too. So I changed a few things around on my website because I had links within my book that led back to my website. because I wanted you to read an article that I wrote, or, you know, to kind of elaborate on the point, you know, click this link and go to this article, and then you can get a deeper understanding of this point. Well, I had some of those links had changed. So I had to go back in and re-upload my ebook because, well, links changed, things changed, titles of my books have changed, because I ended up actually changing the titles of like 2 of my books.
Oh, wow.
Because I had done some market research and realized, hey, people weren't really searching for that topic or that idea or that thing. So I really did my research on looking for SEO, search engine optimization, within not only my description, but throughout the book and the title and everything as well too. So when I did that, yeah, everything changed. You know, so I can absolutely see how you can get stuck in that. That's a great point, you know, especially if you got a lot of links in your book. Now, you don't want to overlink everything, but I think if some things lead to something that's relevant, primarily your own content, I wouldn't link to somebody else's stuff. I would want to link back to my stuff. But I think there's value in links, but the biggest point is that content that's up at the front, like link to my website. And I see so many authors getting it wrong. You know, they'll highlight their illustrator, their publisher, but they forget about themselves.
Yes.
I'm like, gosh, you know, you highlighted the fact that so-and-so illustrated your book, so-and-so published your book, but there's no link to your website. You know, and that was the point that I wanted to make, is that I see so many authors forgetting about themselves.
Well, you know, I think for a lot of us, and I've said it before, you know, I'm shy. So I had to learn the art of self-promotion, and you do want to give credit where credit is due, to your publisher for putting a great product out there, and to your illustrator for really bringing it to life.
Great point. Yeah.
Kind of hard for some of us, you know, who are cognizant of the fact that we don't go around bragging, to make sure we brag on ourselves. It is a thing to do, and you're right. As an author, you do need to make sure you give yourself credit where credit is due. So maybe the key would be to say to the authors to balance it out. If you highlighted your illustrator, also highlight yourself. If you highlighted your publisher, go back and highlight yourself to where the attention is even. You would hope that your illustrator is doing the same for you. When the illustrator sells a book, to say, I couldn't have done it without the magnificent story written by so-and-so, and give you the and your publisher could say, you know, we couldn't have sold this book if it wasn't for the brilliant idea of so-and-so. So you want it to be reciprocal. So you're correct. Don't forget about yourself. And in giving the healthy praise to everyone else, hopefully they're reverting it back to you as well.
Right. Yeah. What goes around comes back around. At least you'd like to hope or think.
Definitely.
So speaking of marketing, what are some marketing strategies that have worked for you, that you've tried in the past that maybe didn't work, and what are you currently doing?
Well, right now I'm trying to, I don't know if I've done a really good job or not, but I'm trying to do more promotion on social media, but linking to other sites, because, you know, if you're only focusing on your Facebook page of who likes you, then your message is getting to the same audience.
Right.
So when I post now, I'm trying to make sure that I link to something relevant. So for example, next Saturday, I'm going to be a presenter for a session at an event called Read For Me in Dallas. And so I make sure when I post, I'm including a link to where I'm reaching everybody else associated with that link, and not just the same people who are already following me. And then you garner new attention and build new relationships with that. So you want to link outward to give more people a chance to get to know you and come back in. But relationships, I think, is what I've noticed lately has been more helpful. I've already, you know, gone to all the Dallas bookstores. I make sure when a new one opens that I show up and not just look and buy books, but say, hey, I'm an author too. How is it you make your acquisitions? How do you know what books to purchase? If you're not ordering, are you doing consignment? You know, just make sure you make yourself an option. I'm willing to come in and sign for you. But it's showing up and putting a face to the name instead of just an anonymous email. That builds that relationship. And the next time that there's an opportunity, that person will think of you. Oh, that person came by and made the effort and shook my hand. I might want to help them out and have them here.
I've done that. I've went into Barnes and Nobles, you know, first and foremost with the understanding of I might get disappointed. Okay, they may
Right.
say no, but then again, there may be that one time that somebody canceled, or you don't know what you don't know. And if
Yes.
you don't ask and put yourself out there into the world, you will never create an opportunity. And I think that there's lots of opportunity that's out there if you create them, if you take action.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And those opportunities a lot of the time are coming through networking in
Hmm.
unexpected ways. So you do need to be open to new things. Recently, I was introduced to Alignable. I don't know if you've seen that website yet. Um,
No, not yet.
give referrals, you make connections, you give recommendations.
Okay.
It's your circle in a much more instant way, I guess, than
Mhm.
Facebook and Twitter and all that, because you're reaching brand new people that aren't necessarily associated with what you do
Yeah.
in your community, and it broadens your perspective.
So is that a website, alignable.com, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
and it starts within your local community,
okay.
branching out and recommending back and forth. And so that, from what I'm told, is going to be the next new thing. Um,
Okay.
LinkedIn, but there are ebbs and flows with how people view social media sites and what they use them for. So you have to
Right.
be open to what the new thing is, what's growing, what's getting attention, and
I
be
just got on TikTok the other day. I thought it was an opportunity.
yeah. Yes.
I'm
So
not
you
using it the way other people are using it, though. I'm not dancing or, doing.
know.
Now, I've done a couple of those little things. Look, if I tried to dance, I would break a hip if I tried to do that. But but I used it in a way, because you don't have to really use the audio or the music or the dancing or play the
Mhm.
little things that they do that. I literally get there and I start talking and I share a message, and then I say, hey, you want to connect with more with me? Go visit my website. It,
Exactly.
it's it's a platform that you can still use hashtags and
Mhm.
join in on trending content. It's, in other words, it's like Tony Robbins said, there's never a lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness.
Yes.
Okay,
So much.
there's platforms all over the internet. It's a matter of how you use them. Okay, so alignable.com might be considered for one thing. That's great. I'm not going to use it that way. I'm going to use it this way.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of authors don't do, is that they don't put themselves out there. Like, they target in on that one or two things, but forgetting other opportunities. Look, you got to go where the eyeballs are.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I network a lot with other authors on Facebook. And so
Mhm.
one thing I've noticed is, I don't have all day to research what else, where else I can get my name out there and
Right.
what's out there, but I pay attention to what the others are doing. And so
Yes.
so and so author over here has said, hey, I have this interview out with this website or this blog or in this chat room.
Mhm.
I will ask, well, how did you get that?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can be interviewed by them too. I constantly look for what else can I do? What has
Yeah.
worked for people? How else can I get my name out there? And just pay attention, because you can't possibly know everything, but you
Right.
can pay attention and be resourceful and say, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Well, let me.
Right.
And it's like you said, the worst that can happen is that they say no. I
Mhm.
like to go for the unconventional ways of looking at things and bringing things to my attention and just saying, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Would you mind highlighting an author instead? Do you mind a
Mhm.
children's author? And sometimes they'll say, well, that's not the right fit, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm the first author who's actually asked them. Maybe
Right.
it's the first time they say yes because they also hadn't thought about it before. So you never know.
I like to look at it this way. It's kind of like laying breadcrumbs all over the place. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? And then whoever finds those breadcrumbs will find their way to your house, to your home. Okay.
exactly.
And that's where a website becomes important. So I
Mm.
strongly believe that a website is really kind of the most important thing. And as long as you got your website set up
Mm.
properly, then, once again, it's leading people back to where you are the owner of. Like, I don't own Facebook. Facebook could be gone tomorrow, and everything that I've put on Facebook is gone right there with it. TikTok the same way. Twitter, Instagram, all that could go away. But my website, that's my home. I own that. I control what
Mm.
goes on that, and how I manipulate that, so to speak. So, being a nonfiction author myself, for me, that works. Social media is my
Mm.
arms and legs, and I want everybody back into my house. And I give away a lot of free stuff, but I've got other paid stuff that I'm trying to lead you down that path. It's about laying breadcrumbs, in other words.
Right.
And I think that's the point that I was trying to make with that, to kind of caveat on what you were saying, breadcrumbs. Lay the right breadcrumbs in places, and people will follow where you want to lead them to.
Yes. Yeah. And they may have an opportunity down the road that they didn't at that moment.
Right.
Put your face into their head and your name into their head, and at some point the opportunity may arise. I have a friend who works in real estate. Really isn't much that we're going to have to connect over as far as business, but he's a father.
Right.
And the other day he asked me, I've never had an author at my children's school. Would you be able to come out? I'm going to buy one copy of the Unhuggables for everyone in my younger son's class and one for the teacher. I'm going to buy one of Kindertransport for everyone in my older son's class, including the teacher.
That's awesome.
To come. And I said, well, yes, that's almost in one shot out of somebody who's a real estate agent who really there wasn't much else that we were going to collaborate on in that way. So, like I said, you never know how those connections are going to come in handy and be mutually beneficial. And that's wonderful. And it all comes from the relationship. If we hadn't had a friendship and he didn't know, I put my heart into these children's books, and I'm willing to come and meet teachers and meet students and talk to them and make those connections too and build those relationships. That might be a school that offers to bring me back out the next year to present to the entire school.
Right.
Relationships really are key, and however you foster those relationships, make sure you do, because you never know how you could help them move ahead, and they can help you as well.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I've had a couple of opportunities like that myself. And here's the point with that, to caveat on what you were saying. You are always one or two people away from where you want to be. Okay. Let's say, for example, if you want to get to, I don't know, a school to where I want to speak about my book. Well, that real estate agent that has a kid that goes to that school. So once again, that got your foot in the door. And I think that a lot of authors don't really see that. So that was kind of a conversation from earlier, is how do you forward think opportunities with your book? So a lot of authors tend to write their book, fob it out into the world and be like, I'm a published author. There it is. Go buy my book. You know what I'm saying? But they don't think about the other opportunities outside of that, whether it's to share a message, a point, touch on trending topics. Like there's trending topics all day, every day. Okay. Right. I'll use one example: bullying. Bullying is still a trending topic. It blows my mind that that's still a trending topic, but it's still a trending topic. And if you got a book that has a message about that, you can use that as a teaching point to go talk to kids in schools.
Right. And back when I was a kid, we didn't have such a huge plethora of literature to choose from. As we do now. Now we have a really big saturated market full of books. As an author, it's not, unless you were just doing it to say you're a published author, if your goal was to become a successful published author, then you do have to go out there and promote that book to where it stands amongst the crowd. As a librarian, I can search bullying with one of our vendors and decide I'm buying a book on bullying, but I have a lot to choose from. You have made your name known. You want me to know about you and say, oh, yes, I'm interested in what this person has to say about it. Or I know the background story to know how this was an important thing for them, how this really touched them and what message they have. And so on top of reviews, on top of other things, I'm going to take that into consideration versus where I've never heard of this person doesn't really make an effort to make a connection to me. That's a really big deal when you're talking about having many, many to choose from. Like a TV show, if you've never heard of it before, you've never seen it before, unless it is directly an arrow to your heart in the subject, you're probably going to watch the first one that there was buzz about, first that you read about, the first one that you heard about, before the other one about the same subject. So that in today's society, that is incredibly important. It's not just getting the book out there. You have to go and do the footwork.
So I want to kind of step back a little bit. You kind of touched on something, and you briefly touched on it right there again as well too. And it's a concept called tailgating. Okay. You tailgate off the success of other like authors or other people or other concepts or other things. And I think that that's also an opportunity as well too. What's trending? What are people doing? Where are they at? You know, and you can kind of tailgate on the success of that. And I think once again, you know, there's authors that are just, you know, they just want their book out there and that's enough for them. And then you got authors that have a bigger vision for what it is that they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do, and they can tailgate on different things.
And that's an important thing to consider because, you know, if I know bullying is trending and bullying is the hot topic on everybody's mind, my books aren't about bullying. However, the Unhuggables, you know, I start out by telling you that Oliver's upset. That's what is the impetus and the birth of the entire story.
Right.
I tell you why he's upset.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about bullying today, I can bring in this book and say, maybe that's why Oliver is upset. Have you ever had that experience? Did you think you want to curl up in a ball like an armadillo? And I can use it to into the book.
Right.
So if you're savvy and you say, this is what everybody's talking about right now, it's not exactly the subject matter of my book, but I can relate it to it.
Yes.
You have your hook in and you stay relevant. Relevance is going to be very, very important when it comes to marketing.
And that makes it, you know, you hit the key word, relatable. It makes it connects with certain things. And I think there's a huge opportunity for that. So that's one thing that I really wished I had was characters, because I don't really have characters. And I know that there's a lot of children's book authors that are out there that have created these characters, these visual characters, these animated characters. I wished I had something like that. You know, I can't say that I'm envious, but I really wish that I had a character, because you can take a character and put that character in any situation. And I think there's a huge opportunity in which you can connect with the right people, with the right message, with a relatable character. So with your characters, with your books, do you feel that your characters can connect or relate to any subject or situation, especially the Unhuggables?
Yes. You know, that one, the Kindertransport is specific, although for Helen, she was based off several different people and the input of several different people. Her is unique, but, you know, if there are children out there who have grown up in foster homes or who've lost a parent or were temporarily placed with other people. So you can take her and relate her in a different level to other people. Just creative with how you relate your character, you can bring in other parallel experiences that may not be the same. The Unhuggables, I think, is much easier to do it with, as you mentioned, and I did it on purpose. I did not want to know why Oliver was upset, because then it would really shrink down the relatability. If I said he's mad because he didn't get a toy, well, then you might think, well, what a brat. Never read about this kid. He sounds spoiled. Or, you know, he's mad because his parents just got a divorce. Well, very relatable for a lot of kids these days, but maybe not for others. And then you lost. However, any kid can identify with being upset.
Yeah.
Kid can identify with being mad or sad at the moment. And I chose upset on purpose too, because even if I say he's sad or he's mad, I'm already limiting his experience. Upset, the feeling everybody knows. So I've instantly roped in every kid who's ever felt upset for whatever reason, even if it's totally different from why he's upset. And that's important. You want to be able to broaden the connection instead of limiting it.
And that's a great point. You know, words are powerful. You know, I think that the same words that can hurt can also heal.
Yes.
And, you know, and a lot of authors struggle with that. So I get onto social media, for example, and I see certain authors out within the writing community that are looking for specific words like, hey, how would you describe, you know, BAM, whatever BAM may be? And so do you ever struggle with trying to find descriptive words that can connect a specific way, or no?
I think it's all in the matter of your spin. And because, you know, many years ago, I was reviewing music for an alternative culture guide. And that was very hard for me because it's not in my nature to say, oh, I really didn't like this. This was awful. And never do that to anybody, especially in print. But I also didn't want to say, you know, this was the best thing I've ever heard. So what I would do is try to twist the perspective and say, okay, this wasn't my style or this wasn't for me. this is who I think this music would be great for because of this, this, and this. This was the thing that I liked about it. And so I would make sure to highlight what would be useful in a review. Hey, if you're really into this genre, if you really enjoy this type of artist, then this is a great pick for you. Or this is music I could listen to when I feel like this. And it's funny because I had a few of the artists reach out to me at other points, thank you for the review, etc. And one of them said to me, I couldn't tell whether you liked it or not, but I really appreciate what you said. It was really interesting. And for a second, I thought, uh-oh, maybe I did a really bad job at the review. I realized, no, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's not about whether me as one individual liked or didn't like it. It's who would this be good for? You know, if you click with the things that I mentioned in the review, then that's the music for you. And I did it without hurting anyone's feelings, without making anyone feel bad, and without, you know, taking away the validation of the creative spirit that was necessary to create the music. I made it relevant to who it would be good for, who it would match. And you've got to be very careful with how you do that, especially with characters, because if your character is a bad guy and all you say is, you know, he's terrible, he has anger issues, he's hateful, he's this, he's mean to animals and children. Well, I hate that. Why do I want to read about that guy? Wow, what my time. Yeah, he's a bad guy. But if you give him some depth, if you give him a backstory, if you help the reader understand, okay, well, I still hate him. Understanding, oh, okay, he behaves like this because of this, or this is his reaction to this trigger in the environment. This is his reaction to this type of relationship. I've created a much more interesting character than if this, you know, 80s stereotypical Russian bad guy comes out and his only mission is to destroy the world. Stereotypes and cliches, I don't think have a point anymore in literature. It's too one-dimensional and see-through. I want to know what makes him act like that.
Yeah. Don't make the, in other words, don't make the book predictable. And I think that there's a lot of books that are predictable out there. You know, you read them and it's like, oh my goodness, here's the same old thing and it's predictable. There's nothing new. Throw a twist in there. You know what I'm saying? Something that somebody hasn't seen, or kind of cross-pollinate something in there that might not necessarily be possible, but it is in a book.
Yes. And even if you start that way, the twist is important because that's what's going to make me finish the book. If I can, in chapter 1, already say, okay, these two are going to fall in love 2/3 of the way through, they're going to have a fight, and win or over the end, then I'm not going to spend my time reading the book. I know that book without reading it. I want to read the books, and I'm going to remember the ones that made me say, oh, wow, you know, I had no idea that was going to happen. And character, I didn't see her doing that.
Right.
Those are the ones I want to read. So you have to make sure that it's not just in the words, it's in the depth of what you've created. Did you create a real, possibly existing person in your character?
Okay. So if you could share 1 or 2 like top marketing strategies with authors out there, what would those be?
I would say be resourceful and open.
That's
number 1. You know, if somebody says, hey, now I need you to create a profile on this website because this is what everybody's talking about, be open to it. Say, okay, you look into it because maybe that's the next big thing. You know, be open to what else is going on out there. And cross promotion, I think, is important. When you're willing to be a guest author or, you know, a guest blog spot writer on someone else's website, that helps you too, because now you have an ear in their audience. So forth. So if you're willing to go out and help others and partner up and collaborate, you know, we are our own ship as writers. That's true. I don't think I could be a co-author. That would hurt my brain too much.
Right.
But be a co-conspirator or co-collaborator in becoming a successful author and pair up events. You know, there may be an event where, you know, I'm out in a rural area, so there's not enough of an audience to bring in if it's just me showing up. But if I pair up with another author, well, now, you know, you have a double act.
Right.
This is even better. Now we can get even more people in. And so maybe the person that hadn't heard of me before, but heard of my other author friend, is going to come to my book and be my next. you know, and vice versa. So you help each other in that way. And like I said, the networking thing is one thing, but collaborating and putting together things with the help of others really helps make new opportunities happen.
I agree wholeheartedly. And there's a lot of opportunities that are out there, you know, to go live on Facebook or YouTube, or, you know, even go live on Twitter. I mean, there's software that can tie that together. StreamYard is one of them. Like, I can go live on YouTube and Facebook and this, that, and the other, like you and I are doing right now. And we could go live on Facebook and have a conversation. I've actually done that with other authors where I wasn't on my website, I was on their website or their Facebook page, but yet I was the interviewer. I was the one talking to them and presenting the ideas, but yet what I did is I connected my knowledge and experience of software and websites, i.e. StreamYard, and I did all the connection. He gave me access to his Facebook page, made me an administrator, connected it all together, and I actually was on somebody else's Facebook page, because I tied my knowledge and experience that they lacked. And that's how we was able to reach a different audience. So then, of course, I shared all that out on my social media. He shared it out on his social media. And that collaborative effort, you know, it's teamwork. It makes the dream work, you know, to kind of quote a cliche quote, but it's true. So many authors are out there trying to either take on the world by themselves individually, or not even trying at all. Once again, they throw it out there and hope for the best, you know, and it's just not going to work that way. But if you really put forth the effort to connect with other people, you know what I'm saying? Once again, it's that tailgating that I was talking about earlier. You can tailgate on other people's success, because everybody wants visibility. Everybody wants to kind of accomplish the same thing. And I think that you can amplify that by working collaboratively with other authors and other people. And you might learn something as well, too.
Exactly.
So tell me, do you have any current or future projects that you're working on?
Oh, yes. I have a lot up my short sleeves right now. I just signed on my birthday, actually. I was offered a contract for another children's book through my first publisher called Bewildered. I don't think I'm allowed to go into details yet, but it is to be a bilingual book, which is great. You know, there's a huge market for Spanish language literature in schools, especially in Texas, but also bilingual books. So I'm very, very excited about the development of that. I can't say much else about it except tentatively, I think we're looking at 2022.
Okay.
A release. So it's a little ways out, but I mean, you know, in literature, it's a time-consuming process. So I'm emerging into film writing. I've a few jobs for hire in film, but you know, I wanted something to be mine. I wanted to do something with the literature I've written for, you know, your average adult. So I converted one of my stories to a script, and in December, I was the writer and executive producer for my first short film called The Clandestine Lunch By Nina.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is, yes, it's with an editor now, so I'm hoping that we will be running film festivals this summer. We will see what happens, but I am working already on the next one, which I hope to be feature-length film. So a lot coming, but I'm trying to allow myself to be my whole well-rounded self as a writer.
And so, you know, that's creating opportunity right there, because there's definitely lots of opportunity that's out there that's taking something and you seeing a vision in the opportunity or the possibilities of it. And I think that that's one thing that as well too, don't put a lid on what you think that something can do, because you don't know what it can do until you put it out there into the world, or you try different things with it. Okay. And that is absolutely amazing. I know of a couple of other authors that are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to, you know, get their published works into film, and that's a challenge. I mean, there's challenges to that, but that's where networking comes into play. If you got an idea and a vision and somebody, you can get somebody else to see that vision. Once again, it's a matter of creating that opportunity.
Right. And being a learner, huge learning curve that I'm on. I worked in crew on a few sets this past year in order to get a bigger perspective on what all was going to be involved in getting into film in this way. So you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to start from the bottom to grow who you want to be. And I that's going to allow more success in the future, is having a more in-depth knowledge of what you're getting into. That being said, I think I prefer the writing element of it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else. So now that I'm more experienced and knowledgeable in it, hopefully that will help me get more of my films and scripts out there as well.
Yes. And that's always been my goal with Author Teach, is to coach, teach, train, mentor other authors in things that they either don't know or they don't realize is an opportunity. Once again, you can share valuable knowledge and experience and skills, you know what I'm saying? And then you could also spark an idea. So like having a conversation with you could spark an idea. It's like, you know, I didn't think about doing that. Maybe I should do that. You know, once again, it's, you don't know what you don't know. And until you really kind of engage, you know what I'm saying, you're really limiting yourself. There's lots of opportunity out there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Kenna, thank you for joining me here today. Thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge and experience. I definitely wish you all the best in everything that you do. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much, Terry. I appreciate it. Best of luck to you too.
Okay. And if you would like to connect with more from Kenna Sosa, you can do so by visiting her website, kennamayfieldsosa.wixsite.com. You can also connect with her on social media. She's out there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and most likely a couple of other sites as well too. I will make sure that I will grab all those links and have them in the description below. And to all the members of the Author Teach community, I wish you all the best and continued success. Keep writing that next bestseller. And you know what? I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, Kenna.
Thank you.